African Army chiefs will meet in Ghana's capital, Accra, on Thursday and Friday this week to prepare for a possible military intervention in Niger. Meanwhile, the Niger junta says it is open to talks to resolve the crisis caused by the coup. Now, what level of military intervention can restore a democratic order in Niger? Adebayo Adeleke, security consultant, joins me now for this discussion. Adebayo, thank you for taking the time out to join us today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Well, the standoff between ECOWAS and the Niger military junta in Niger doesn't appear to be diffusing, despite indications from both sides that they are open to resolving the crisis peacefully. Now, as you know, military chiefs in West Africa, ECOWAS, are meeting tomorrow and Friday. But in terms of what to do with next steps, what outcome are you expecting? What options are? We've talked about this extensively on our shows in terms of what options are available to ECOWAS.
Oh, thank you. It's quite it's quite interesting that the narrative out there is that whenever you mention the word military intervention, people often are equated to war, but that's not the case. There's so many wide arrays of tools within the ECOWAS community that they can use actually militarily to actually enforce some of these sanctions that have been going on in Niger. They have to give diplomacy a chance. It's not even thinkable of actually waging a war in Niger, because we have a lot of communities that are overlapping from different countries, and there's a lot of ungoverned spaces. The supply chain to support the troops going to Nigeria for even any conflict is too long and oftentimes unstable. And so there's so many issues. Actually, even thinking about going in there with gun blazing is quite unthinkable. So I believe the option that is on the table right now is to continue diplomacy. You exhaust all possible means. At some point, if diplomacy is not it has reached its limit, then excuse me, you can consider other options. But I think ECOWAS has wide arrays of options and enforcing sanctions. It's a lot of when in looking at conflict continuum, a wide range of military interventions that can be used in a contested environment. There are a lot of military intervention methods that can be applied without going into full combat mode. So I believe that's what ECOWAS is trying to say in their communication, in their communique, as they call it, out there. But I think better job is needed to be able to communicate to folks that this is not necessary. Military intervention doesn't necessarily mean full combat operations.
Right. Now, for the Niger junta, the sanctions that have been put in place by ECOWAS, it sees that as a sign of hostility, and we have been getting mixed signals from the junta itself. One minute they want to talk, the next minute they're declaring that the ousted president Bazoum is going to be charged for high treason. It would appear that this is complicating, continues to complicate conversations for both sides. So it would appear that both sides need to reach a point where perhaps they have some level of comfort for discussions. And for the Niger junta, it would appear that they want these sanctions off first, any act of aggression, as it were, off the table before they talk. So it just makes it more difficult in terms of how this proceeds going forward. So how do you see this playing out?
So I believe in this kind of situation, everyone has to take a step back and reassess the situation a bit. It is what it is at a point in time. The military junta has been there for quite some time now, and I don't think telling them to leave at any point in time is quite an expected outcome. So there are other expectations, a give and take in conflict resolution and in conflict negotiation, rather, as a give and take. So there will be some concessions made there and there, and oftentimes I'm not privy to a lot of information and the intel that the ECOWAS community has on the Niger side as well, their own intel community, what they're giving them. So I cannot speculate. But at least from outsiders, as an outsider looking in, I think there's a lot of concession. I think releasing of the president and his family is one way to show of good faith that could increase to a lot of other opportunities going forward, and how to kind of de-escalate the situation that is going over there. And I think in the Niger side, they've seen that going forward, towing the line as they have done so far is not in their own best interest. Just kind of de-escalated. And what the ECOWAS community is doing, and also the pressure Nigeria is implying, I believe is working. It might not be what as fast as we wanted, but I believe it's working. And also because of the communal overlap, as I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of communities that are present in all these other countries and also in Nigeria.
Right.
And our ability to leverage that using tribal leaders and chiefs to actually communicate the intent is quite the best way to go in this kind of situation.
Well, talking about communicating, you do make a very good point there in terms of making making concessions for both sides. But what the ECOWAS has communicated, at least to the press, to the outside world, is that when they say they want to restore democratic order, restoring democratic order involves restoring the ousted president, as leader of the country, something that the junta, I believe, is probably most likely not open to. So that makes one wonder, what is the end game here for the ECOWAS? You want to restore democratic order. Is that going to, will you be open to achieving that with or without the ousted president?
That's very interesting because the ousted president actually, the people he trusted among, his rank and file are the one that actually ousted him. So for him coming back in place, that means he has to pretty much have to clean out the military, he has to review the military and whatnot. So for me, I don't think that is an achievable end state at the moment. I think there are other methods, interim government, transition. There's a lot of things they really want to transition back into democratic government. The elected president coming back is a possibility. I'm not going to say anything's out of impossible.
Sorry to butt in here, but we have seen something similar. I believe was it either Guinea or Mali, Burkina Faso, where we're still yet to see democratically elected presidents after promises being made by the military juntas there that after a couple of months we'll put a parliament together, whatever, and we'll midwife a democratic era back into the country. We haven't seen that happen. So obviously there's always that mistrust when it comes to the comments from the side of the military itself.
Absolutely. The promises are made, but action is what really counts. So, what I've seen in most of the coup is hard to find the former president returning back. It's under extreme circumstances. If it ever happened, actually, I don't even think, right off the top of my head right now, I don't think any else can actually happen because there's a lot that has to be in place because right now there's kind of dysfunctionality in the structure of the government. So what I believe that is possibly can be the best outcome out of there is how can the current military pave the way for another transition government to come in? Because right now, if the old president comes back in, I don't even know what's going to happen, or what's going to happen to the current military structure, the political structure that is already in place. So I will advise ECOWAS not to dig themselves in the position in such a way and in such a manner that it's going to be very hard to walk back, but actually give concession and negotiation a chance, because it's a give and take. If you're already taking a stand that there's no other outcome except this that's going to be acceptable, then I don't think anything is going to happen in the first part. Because when it comes, you are trying to seek power from somebody that's already taken it from another. So there's a lot of, and it's very hard. In Sahel, Sub-Sahara, historically, we don't really give power like that. So we have a lot of construct to go after, historical construct to go after. So it's quite challenging. It's an uphill battle. It's actually an Herculean task.
Absolutely. Now, conflict experts also tell us that, if a military option is what ECOWAS believes that they're left with at the end of the day, if all other channels are exhausted, it could easily spiral into a war that has no end in sight. Do you think that there is a deep understanding within ECOWAS, and is this of that possibility, potential cost of further instability in the Sahel region, and is this a cost, a chance you think they're willing to take?
Absolutely, as you can see. Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, all these particular countries have fallen, but Niger is like the buck stop here, and Niger is very important to the democratic effort in Africa to take a foothold. So this Niger is quite contentious, if I believe if all democratic measures have been taken and they've yielded no result, yes, the ECOWAS has no other option but to use military at any point in time. And I think at that particular point in time, people will have known that they've exhausted all possible means. But right now, it's too premature to call for war or whatnot. As you can see, what ECOWAS did in Gambia, there's a lot of military intervention that's been going on across the ECOWAS over the course of the past few years, and they've actually yielded result and they've not ended in war. So what I'm saying is, I believe that ECOWAS has traction that they can actually use some pressure, they can use some military intervention that doesn't necessarily go to full-blown combat operation. And I believe if they throw that line and see how, how it turns out, they'll be able to make assessment if few things are necessary, or, a certain adjustment is needed to achieve their end state. But right now, as we start, I would advise for them to use to actually explore diplomatic measures.
Right. Adebayo, I must thank you for your time. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Hopefully, of course, we continue to monitor developments, and hopefully we'll have you back to share more thoughts on as things develop.